My Google and YouTube algorithms are hard at work, serving me up some of the freshest Baldur's Gate 3 content that it can find. And every once in a while, there's that rogue, unhinged article or YouTube video that gets slid my direction, and I just can't help but indulge myself. And normally I use this YouTube channel as more of a confessional where I talk to you guys about my thoughts and opinions on games and my excitement and sometimes my criticisms. But today, I'm going to share with you my frustrations and some of the worst takes on Baldur's Gate 3 I've seen. I've seen it in my YouTube thread. I've seen it online on different articles. I've seen it in my own YouTube comment section. Woke trash. This inclusivity garbage will die in a week. This bear stuff really sold it on this one. So on and so forth. And while this is a tiny fraction of the comments that I see on my videos, it's nevertheless frustrating to deal with people's misdirected and ill-informed rage. I can't quite fathom the mental gymnastics that are necessary for you to want to impose what body parts belong on what body type in a game in which you're throwing fireballs at interdimensional monstrosities while under the influence of a psionic brainworm that allows you to communicate with other people's minds. Not to mention the bear stuff. You have to pick the bear. You got to make that bear yours. You don't just fall in love with the bear on accident. No, you pick that path. That's the path you chose. And it's like dark comedy. You're taking this stuff way too seriously. It's a fantasy game. Chill out. You can't just wind up romancing a character on accident, except for Gale, okay? Gale's that one character where he's just like, I'm going to show you a magic trick, and he just like pops his fucking dick from behind your ear. All right, look, I get it. You're sick and tired of different media beating you over the head with ideologies that you don't prescribe to. And I think that's completely fair. However, I am just upset as you are over the Witcher Netflix series and things like that, but that's not what this is. Larian isn't telling you a story because it's not theirs to tell. It's yours to tell. These are your decisions to make in the game. You want some spicy druid shenanigans? You do you. You want a tall, one-horned queen that can carry you off into the sunset? Well, then I do me. Or do none of it, because you can. That's the point of the game. That's the point of Dungeons & Dragons. It's leveraging your choices, your beliefs, your ideologies, and your imagination to tell a story. People shouldn't be complaining about the freedom that's given to us. We can do whatever we want in this game, and that's one of the leading reasons why this game is so popular and why the game is so good. Save the grove, destroy the grove, befriend animals, kick a squirrel. Do whatever you want. Baldur's Gate 3 presents diverse perspectives rather than just pushing a particular narrative. Just like normal, everyday interactions with regular people. That's the point. The game is supposed to feel natural. Your decisions are supposed to come to you naturally as you roleplay in this fantasy role-playing game. Look, any specific ideologies or unique identities that are presented in Baldur's Gate 3 are always going to be subtle because the game has to mirror real life in some ways for it to be an immersive experience, like we're talking to normal people. This isn't some radicalizing YouTube video that you're watching or some clickbait article that pops up or anything like that. That's not how you tell a good story. It can't just stop you in your tracks. That's not how it works. And I could guarantee that if there were any use of bludgeoning or forced upon beliefs in Baldur's Gate 3, the fans of the game, the people that are playing it right now, would be up in arms over it because that's not a good representation of other people's beliefs or their identities. That's something that we've seen across all media. They always misrepresent people. Looking at you, Netflix. Which brings me to a Kotaku article titled, Baldur's Gate 3 puts luck ahead of fun. The amazing RPG too often denies players the most interesting path. Now, I'm not going to read the entire Kotaku article because that would take far too long. However, I'm going to give you the gist of it. And basically, the things that they do is they criticize the look of the dice roll, saying it doesn't look very good. It's also a very meaningless roll of the die. The animation is really bad, and they wish it was replaced with something else. But their main criticism is that Baldur's Gate 3 shouldn't have narrative dice rolls. Part of the article reads, the core point here is Baldur's Gate 3 dangles its most interesting options before you, then denies them based on random luck. And that's not D&D at its best. Worse, there's a way around it, a way to correct this for yourself, but it's save scumming, and you just feel dirty and rubbish. Yet the alternative is knowing that you just killed an entire village of characters who could have given you information, even quests, or fleshed out later stages of the game because you didn't roll a 15 in that one conversation. There's no right answer here as the player. Those who will angrily demand no one ever reload are likely having a less interesting time with the game as a result. Those who are reloading unlucky dice rolls are also diminishing their own experience, even if it's just because they feel bad. As once you start, it's hard to stop. Or even worse, people might just start picking the bland options simply because they don't come with an unfair risk. Now, to be honest with you, this article is actually rather vanilla. It's only lightly spicy in the fact that I just don't actually understand the point of even making it in the first place. Because, well, I completely understand the idea of not wanting to save scum, because I've made a video on it in the past where I've encouraged people to at least give it a shot not save scumming and just playing the game as it lays, because it ends up being a little bit more interesting that way more times than not. And I understand a lot of people don't have the time to play multiple playthroughs or anything like that, and they're just going to play the game however they want, which is completely fine, because it's what you should do, is play the game however you're going to have the most fun playing it. I don't understand fighting against the idea that luck should be in the conversation, because, well, that's just the unpredictability of conversations with people in real life. And again, like I said before, the game has to mirror real life in some ways, otherwise it doesn't make the game very immersive in the first place. And actually, in their article, they take time to discuss how they think it's fine that the game has sleight of hand rolls when you're trying to pickpocket somebody or when you're trying to unlock a chest. And the same thing goes for combat, where they say that's completely fine as well. But the thing is that in both of those situations, more times than not, well, you can also affect the narrative just as much as you can in a conversation. There's tons, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's people that you could end up losing in a combat that, if you would let live, could end up leading to other quests or could be a part of the main or greater narrative of the game moving forward. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to say, well, this part doesn't need it, but the other parts still do. You either say none of them need it or they all do. And it's also odd to say that you're okay with playing things as they lay, but then at the same time, you don't like playing things as they lay when it happens in conversation. And to be honest with you, and this is a personal thought, obviously, but for me, that ends up kind of being the fun. There's kind of the drama in losing that dice roll in a conversation when you're trying to deceive somebody. And yeah, it could drastically alter the narrative that you're playing or the story that you were trying to set for the character that you're making, but that just makes things a little bit more fun. It adds to the replayability for, obviously, the people that can replay the game multiple times, like I will, probably at least 1,000 times. Speaking of making your own narrative, let's talk about Metacritic reviews. See, Metacritic and OpenCritic are often used by consumers to gauge the success of a game or gather information about a game before making a purchase. Myself, if I'm unfamiliar with a game, I try to gauge it through editorial criticism and also the opinions of content creators whom I share similar interests with. You can't fully trust publications. We've learned that through Cyberpunk 2077. However, on average, many of them do try to be as transparent as possible with as little bias as they possibly can, even though they are incentivized to score on the high side so they can continue getting insider access and review copies of games. Luckily, some of them are a little bit too transparent, like Kotaku, and just flat out don't get codes anymore at all. However, it's not just publications posting on Metacritic. It's users too. And most of the times, this is a really great reflection of how the community feels about the current state of a game. But sometimes, it can be people weaponizing reviews for the wrong reasons. Baldur's Gate 3's score isn't low by any means. It's actually the highest rated PC game of all time on Metacritic right now. However, I found it odd that there was any disparity between the critic and user reviews. So I took a look, and boy, do I have some gems. 4 out of 10 to balance out the hype. Just like the last big gaming release is backed by social media marketing, the release of Baldur's Gate 3 is yet again pointed to the roots of marketing hype and public relations. Propaganda. People become devotees up in arms against anyone who stands in the way of its gloriousness, its holiness, its singularity. Game of the year, game of the year, game of the year. Consumed and forgotten, one after the other. It's sad to see how the name Baldur's Gate is used for an entirely different game that is also part of this phonetic and agitated hollowness that is shaping the current gaming industry, as well as groupthink mentality. 4 out of 10 to balance out the hype. I love it. Honestly, I don't understand what's going on here other than they think that there's some like greater overarching conspiracy with games and their reviews and them being overhyped, I guess. He goes further into explaining how it's completely different from Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, which I would imagine because it's been, over 20 years since those games came out, and they're not even made by the same developer anymore. So, yeah. Combat is incredibly slow. Even the smallest skirmishes drag on forever. The dialogue is fan fiction levels of awful. The companions are either annoying or not in any way interesting. To top it off, the entire game is extremely sordid and full of degenerated nonsense. It is sad to see what Larian has done to the Baldur's Gate IP. Never again. Combat is incredibly slow. It's a turn-based game. How did you not know what you were getting yourself into? Did you not look at any trailers? Did you not watch any reviews? Did you not look at anything of the game? Did you just blindly click buy? And also, don't mess with my degenerative nature, okay? I love how degenerate this game is because I myself am a degenerate, like most people. Gameplay is slow, dialogues are poorly written, the character creator is absolutely disgusting. I really hope people that voted for this woke nest are bots if they aren't stopped with this hype. It only ruins the industry. What? Combat takes 10 hours per fight to enjoy a 2-minute walk around before the next 10 hours fight starts. This game is 100% not for me. Wish they didn't make it a turn-based. Who the hell wants to take 10 hours per fight to progress nowhere? If it's not 100% for you, then why did you buy the game in the first place? Another one with these turn-based things, and you're going to see there's a lot of people that have this take. Actually, there's a YouTube video that I watched of somebody telling people not to buy Baldur's Gate 3 for this specific reason.
So recently I've been playing the new Baldur's Gate 3, and as an avid fan of Baldur's Gate and ARPGs in general, I knew I just had to play this game. And it's not really a fun or engaging combat system. It works well in games like XCOM, because it's like a tactical, team-based squad shooter game, but this just feels weird. It's like, imagine if Diablo IV was a turn-based game.
I don't understand why you would say you are a fan of Baldur's Gate, then also bring up XCOM and how that was a tactical game, but not recognizing that that's what Baldur's Gate 3 also is as well. And then also the comparisons to Diablo IV. And this is something that I noticed with some of these reviews, is that there's so many people that are seeing people leave Diablo 4 to go play Baldur's Gate 3, and they're enjoying it, and there's all the hype. And you have people that are following the hype, but they're not actually looking to see what the game is in the first place. What are you guys doing? Not sure what to say other than I am simply not impressed. I was expecting way more after this kind of overhype. It would be a decent indie gem, but sadly it has a very ancient combat system. It was cool in 1995, but it's just not fun anymore. At least not for me. Fun in 1995? Baldur's Gate 1 came out in 1998. Baldur's Gate 2 came out in 2000. What are you talking about? This is, again, a case of more people not knowing what they're getting into, or just not knowing the genre of the game, or I don't know, man. Even EA and Ubisoft make hard copies of their games. Very anti-consumer decision to only make digital copies. I'm sorry, is this 2005? When was the last time our computers had disk drives to begin with? I can't even find cases that even have disk drives anymore. The game was released on Steam and GOG. What are you talking about? I'm sure there's hard copies for Xbox and PlayStation 5 that'll come out, but digital copies have been the norm for PC for 15 years, 10 years? The one thing that I see more than anything when it comes to across all of the different user reviews that I've seen is that people just have a common misconception of what the game actually is. There's a whole lot of people that just bought into the hype. And honestly, I think that's a great thing because the hype behind this game is actually a green flag rather than a red flag. People are excited about the game because it doesn't have microtransactions. It's feature complete. Yeah, it has a few bugs, but it's to be expected of a game of this scale and with this much density. It's just ridiculous to me that people don't take the time to actually look to research whether or not it's a game that they're actually going to enjoy. They see the letters RPG, and they just purchase the game thinking that it's going to be the same thing as Diablo IV. I'm sorry, you're going to be sorely mistaken. This game actually has content. It's just ridiculous. I don't know. I found a lot of this stuff funny. I hope you guys actually enjoy this video. I hope it actually kind of goes over well because this isn't usually something that I normally comment on, but I thought it was interesting and entertaining at the very least. I hope you guys are enjoying Baldur's Gate 3. I hope you guys are enjoying your day, and I will see you guys on the next video. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends. Most of all, I'll see you in Baldur's Gate. Peace!